Hey, welcome to another pandemic report. Yeah, I'm getting really scruffy. When I last left you, we were in lockdown. Couldn't celebrate James's birthday the way we wanted to. Well, we could have, but watch the other video. I'm not getting into that again. I had determined that I was eligible, and my phone's going off, eligible to now get the vaccine. But I was running into the problem that there weren't any spots available. Now, I think the reason there weren't any spots available is because there was no vaccine available. I was trying to get the Moderna or the Pfizer shot. Essentially, right now in Canada, you can get Moderna, Pfizer, or AstraZeneca. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about how vaccines work and such. Let's go look that up on YouTube. But I believe the AstraZeneca shot is more of a maybe a standard type vaccine, whereas the Pfizer and Moderna shots, I think, are mRNA type vaccines, if I remember correctly. I'm just going to look it up. Yeah. So yeah, here in Canada, we recently apparently got a huge batch of AstraZeneca stuff. So what they have been doing is, because maybe you heard some stuff about problems with blood clotting as a result, blood clotting being part of the problems with the COVID, you can get blood clots. It can, so it's not unreasonable to think that a vaccine developed from COVID might potentially give you blood clots, but percentage is super small. Now, early research was saying that it was more, percentages are so small, but if you delve into those percentages, it seemed that of the people who were developing clots from AstraZeneca, it was mostly females and of the younger range, to which a lot of people kind of deduced probably hormone related. I get it. It makes sense. Is that truth? Is that correct? I don't know. I don't. It's beside the point. It's too early in the game and all that kind of stuff, right? So here in Canada, what they were doing was putting the AstraZeneca aside essentially for a lot of older people. So senior citizens and women who have essentially gone through menopause, so they don't have that necessary or shouldn't have that hormone problem. Essentially trying to use this is what we think is the reason for it, so it should be safe for these people. And these people are the most at risk, so push it to them first. Right? So for our first responders and even for people who are, of a certain age and stuff like that, at first there was just Pfizer and Moderna. That's what we got. We got a small amount of them, and we're getting trickles of them coming in, but that's who it was delivered for. I think at first they were, if you were in like a nursing home or something like that, or an old age home, I think the vaccines went to them as well. I could be wrong. It got to the point where I wasn't really following it. I was just waiting for, hey, when is my time, essentially. And waiting. So with that whole idea that I mentioned in the last video, where now that if your BMI is 40 plus, you're considered obese, severely obese, that you qualify under medical conditions. So I was like, great, that gets me into the Pfizer Moderna section. I don't have to worry about the other stuff, even though I do believe that as of this point that the AstraZeneca was made available to, like, maybe somebody was telling me as low as 30, which I found was odd. But I mean, Canada is essentially right now rolling out trying to get everybody to have one dose as fast as possible. We're not so much worried about the 2 doses, which is why they've extended. So you know how I think it was Moderna and Pfizer's 4 weeks, which is what they were testing. They were testing the quickest possible. So 4 weeks is the minimum. So anything less than 4 weeks, apparently it doesn't work, or doesn't really work very well. But 4 weeks is where they were testing it. And I get it, a lot of people were upset, you know, like, oh, well, you've pushed it, but the science says 4 weeks. Well, the science only said 4 weeks because that was the minimum. Doesn't mean it's the maximum, it means it's the minimum. So actually getting it a little bit later, I think we pushed ours to 6 weeks. 6 weeks? I don't know. Maybe 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, I don't know. Anyways, they pushed it, knowing, using the whole, I think polio and all those things have a thing where, you know how when you have babies and you can only have your shot and you have to wait at least a year, you can't get it before a year's done, it has to be after a year. It's the same idea. A year is the minimum after a year, right? So you can be a year and a half and it's fine, but if you go before a year, it's no good. Will it work? Possibly, but it's not really guaranteed to work like the other ways are, where you have your 99% chance, right? If you drop down to 80% chance, then that's 20% chance that it fails, and what good is that? So yeah, I was shooting for the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca, and finally, I guess we got some extra doses of that or something. I don't know, because I was going through, you know, the government I'll call it government, I'll explain that a little bit later, but going through the government website, and essentially it only forecasted 14 days. So it would give you spots that you could sign up for 14 days, and then every day it pushed ahead another day. So at first I was just like, okay, well, I'd go on every day and I'd check and there's no spots available, right? I'm like, okay, so maybe I gotta go in sooner. So I would literally, for a few days, I would wait until midnight and it clicks over and the system allows for the next day, and already there's no spots available. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Are there so many people who are like trying to get in on this, that they're all waiting like that? And I do know that there were a lot of problems, and I'll get into that a little bit later in this video, with, you know, trying to get spots to get vaccines when they announced, hey, more people are able to get them, you know, changing the criteria of people who are able, you know, qualified to get the vaccine. It's been this problem that we've been having. So finally, I logged in one day, and there was like days and days and days of availability, because I didn't check for a while, right? I was just like, whatever. And finally I was like, I'm gonna take a look, and there was tons of availability. And that's when I kind of came to the conclusion, whether it's correct or not, was the reason why there was no spots before was because there was no doses available. Now that they got a batch of doses, they could put spots up, and those were available. So me checking all the time was just kind of stupid. Which leads me to this, but either way, I signed Leslie up, I signed myself up, and we got in there. Fantastic setup, everything went hunky-dory, except for the fact that apparently it wasn't mandatory on the sign-up form to put in your health card, which is, if you don't know, in Ontario and essentially Canada, everyone has a health card, which is how we track you through the healthcare system. And it wasn't mandatory. Everything else was, you fill it out. All that other stuff was mandatory. Anything that was mandatory, I filled out. But when I got there, they're trying to find you in the system via your health card number. And she's like, well, did you not put your health card number in? And I was like, well, no, it wasn't mandatory. I was trying to get through the system as fast as possible to pick a spot, right? So any extra numbers, and I mean the health card number, you got to pull out your card and read out and type them all in, and it's not small. So you know, if I don't have to type in that information, I'm skipping it and going on to the next. So, you know, she said, oh, yeah, okay, so I'll try and find you in the system. And she was having a hard time finding me in the system. And apparently she eventually said, okay, I'm going to add you into the system, and went to add me into the system. And, of course, the system said I already existed, to which she went, crap. And so she couldn't figure it out, called over her person there who I guess had more experience with the way their interface was working, you know, how it worked, and ended up I was in there 3 times now. One was the one she just created, so she deleted or put in a ticket or whatever to have that deleted, and then she put me through on one of them. Whatever, I don't know. My health card was in there. They had all that information, so finally you managed to get through it. But that was the only hurdle. That was the only bump. If Leslie got in there, she just had to wait for me because she didn't want to go in by herself to get the needle. So yeah, finally we got the needle. So me and Leslie we're first shot, first dose. Right, we got our little thing here that says we have gotten our first dose, and we have a scheduled appointment for our second dose, which is awesome. So that would mean that we have a second dose that's ready for us when we go there. There's no problems. So that's the update here. What I'm going to get into now is what the hell is wrong with Canada and their vaccines. Wow. Okay. A little bit of history. Canada used to be the leader in vaccine creations. You know, all those things that you hear about, diphtheria, polio, all those kind of things. We didn't create all of them, but for most of the stuff that we are now happy that thankfully vaccines were created and we've gotten rid of most of them in the world, well, Canada produced them. And apparently here in Canada we had 2 big production places, and I think one was out of Toronto and one was out of Montreal, and the Toronto one got sold off by the Conservative government in the 80s, and the Montreal one got sold off by the government in the 90s. I think it was a Liberal government, actually, so can't fault left or right here, people. And the labs still exist here in Canada. In fact, one of them is the largest producer of flu vaccines in the world. I think they produce like over 70% of the flu vaccine that the world uses. But they produce existing vaccines, diphtheria, polio, things, all those kind of things. They produce those and ship them out, and most of them go to the world. And unfortunately, those vaccines are actually still being used to fight those diseases. So we don't have, and this is what I find odd, we don't have major company right now able to, like, yes, we could retool those plants, but it would take time, and 2, that would mean they are no longer producing the vaccines that they're producing. Not a good thing. So yeah, we are completely reliant on other countries. So that sucks. So yeah, we did manage to I think get some, like I said, I got the Pfizer and Moderna, and we got some of those in late 2020 is when we started getting them. But we're talking I don't know the number off the top of my head, and a lot of this stuff is my memory may be a little foggy on this, so don't take this as rote. But I think it was like something along the lines of like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, something like that. And that was it. So that's why I couldn't get an appointment, because we didn't have the vaccines. Now, like I said, the AstraZeneca stuff, I think we started getting that in March of this year. So almost like a year after the whole pandemic started. Not that, I mean, we could have gotten the vaccine, a year ago. It didn't exist, right? But obviously the vaccine has existed from at least December, November-ish, December. I don't know when the first vaccine from Pfizer or Moderna first came out. I remember hearing about it, but it's been so long ago. Yes, I know, so long ago. It's been months, but everything seems to be... Time is this could be 40 years ago for all I know. It's like this damn friggin' pandemic. So, yeah, apparently we do have, and I'll tell you this now, I've worked in these labs. I know we have labs. We just don't have, I mean, and I'm sure they're out there because we apparently got into an agreement with China. See, one of the problems we didn't have was we didn't have the raw material of the virus, right? So we needed that. And one of our universities out on the East Coast, Dalhousie, the government had come into agreement with China to have that, that raw stuff of the COVID sent to them so that we could essentially produce a vaccine for it. But we got shafted by the Chinese. Go figure. Yeah, for whatever reason you wanna say, there's speculation that has to do with Huawei, and speculation has to do with China realized they needed it themselves. Then who knows? But China has, and this is funny. We put millions of dollars into this, only to have essentially the Chinese government, take the money and run. And this isn't the first time. I've talked about. Well, everybody knows. As much as you want to deal with China, you don't want to deal with China. China plays their own game, and it's not a very fair one. So, yeah. So, well, the U.S. and the U.K. and China, quickly were getting into creating their own vaccines, and because China had this same deal with other countries like Russia and stuff, they were able to create their own vaccines. We were kind of here left holding the bag. So we got this AstraZeneca thing. We wanted the Pfizer and the Moderna thing. But we got like I don't even know. I got something like 20 million doses of AstraZeneca or something like that, which is great. And so they put it out to a bunch of the population, right? But here's the thing. That whole blood clot thing starts coming around. It's not as effective as the Pfizer and Moderna stuff. Well, we managed to come in to finally get some kind of contract or something from Pfizer and Moderna and stuff to get millions of doses from them. So we have all of these people who they've gotten vaccine for AstraZeneca, and then the government manages to finally get the Pfizer and the Moderna stuff that they wanted to, or at least an agreement to get it. Who knows how long it's going to take. As far as I know, their agreements run into like 2036. So as I'm saying, we get millions or tens of millions even. That runs into, or not 2036, 2026, or maybe it is 2036. I don't know. It's like years down the road. So yes, we're getting them. Who knows exactly when we get them? Whatever. Of course, as the world ramps up the vaccine production everywhere, we'll eventually get enough vaccines for everybody, and hopefully everybody gets them and gets through this. But so the government was going to essentially And this was, I don't get it. They were going to give the Pfizer and or the Moderna vaccine to the people who had the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is completely untested, unverified. There's no way of knowing that would work, even though based off of other vaccines and other things we know, there's a good chance it's a pretty good thing. There won't be any additional side effects. There won't be any real lessening of the effectiveness of the vaccine. But again, how long do you wait? Who knows what? Like, nobody knows the percentages and stuff like that, and it's untested. But the government's making an educated guess. Well, yeah, the population wasn't very happy with educated guess when it comes to dealing with this kind of stuff, right? And I don't blame them. I'm not happy with that either. And I'm a pretty educated person, right? Like, I get it. Likely will be okay, but I don't like likely, right? Tests have shown Pfizer, Moderna being, high 90% percentile effective after 2 doses. Great. AstraZeneca, I don't know, it's over 80% or something like that. I don't know what the percentage is, but it takes longer to get those doses. I get it. AstraZeneca and then Pfizer, no data. Why? Because nobody's done it. They're completely different types of vaccines. Nobody wants to make an educated guess with their vaccines. So, as far as I know, the government has now procured some, AstraZeneca to be delivered and administered to those people who originally had the AstraZeneca one. If you want to get it earlier and you want to get the Pfizer one, you can. But here's the problem. People out there only know what they're being told, and that is, you can get your vaccine now. That's essentially all we're being told, right? And even that's not being delivered very well, and I'll get to that a little bit later. This is going to be a long one. So, I know people right now, friends of mine, and I'm not going to get into it with them, who got the AstraZeneca and who are now being told, oh, you can get your vaccine now. Okay. I don't know that they're being told, but they're reading that they can get it. I don't know that that's quite the correlation. I do know a lot of people, their timelines have been pumped up because we got that extra Pfizer and Moderna vaccines and stuff like that. Instead of the, whatever it was, 6 or 8 or 12 weeks that they were waiting, the original period, they did reduce it down to the 4-week mark. I think it was 4 weeks, right? 4 weeks was the what you were working with originally. So that did happen. So some people could get it sooner. But again, people got to do their own research when it comes to that. If I got AstraZeneca the first time, I would wait my full period and then get the AstraZeneca. Again, I just wouldn't mix it up. Not with no data, no actual knowledge that it's really effective, that the side effects aren't worse, all those kind of things. I wouldn't mess with that kind of crap, right? But I don't even take a lot of pills and such like that, because you know what, the human body, it's a wondrous thing, but it's also a mystery. We don't know. I'm gonna say we don't know jack shit really about the human body. We know what we've learned so far, but I'd say it's probably maybe 1/100th, maybe 1/1000th, maybe 1/1,000,000th of what the human body is all about. The Canadian government has really dropped the ball on getting vaccines. Where some countries who can produce their own, great, they're producing their own. We don't have that ability. We're reliant on other places. But instead of doing everything like Israel, everything they possibly could, paying extra, whatever you needed to do to get enough vaccines for your population to be vaccinated, Canada did that whole Chinese thing and really got, oh, we'll take a little bit here, we're going to be good, it's going to be fine. No, again, it's not the way to go, and I don't know why we keep putting our faith in China, especially considering our relation with China hasn't been that great lately. But as of now, I think we've got, put it this way, I think we have contracts to procure up to like 70, 240, 310, 380, like almost 400 million doses of vaccine from all sorts of different companies, including Johnson & Johnson, which is the only one that I know of who's trying to make a vaccine that's a one-dose vaccine. That's cool, but everybody else seems to be doing this two-dose thing. So I don't know. I don't know how what the work is, but I say 400 million doses, up to 400 million doses, which is awesome. We've spread out. Now we've learned our lesson, right? We've spread out the net and said, give us all your vaccines. It's costing us a fortune. The population of Canada is roughly about 40 million. 40 million. How many vaccines did I say we're procuring? 400 million? Now we need, for a lot of these, even though some of them are only one, remember, Johnson & Johnson is apparently only one. I don't know what these other companies are developing. Are they one? Are they two? Are they three? I don't know. But if they're two or less, that means the maximum number we will need is 80? What are we doing with all these vaccines? Again, I don't know the ins and outs of these contracts. Maybe it's over the next 20 years or something like that, and so we can give it to, I don't know, hopefully, maybe they're going to find out that it's okay to give to babies or toddlers and stuff like that. Teenagers, kids, because that's really the population that we're not really vaccinating right now. Like I said, I think it was like we're up to 30 years old and above. Anything below that is still not being vaccinated. Okay, so that's the federal government. And that's the crap show that is them. What about the provincial governments? Now, it's funny because each provincial government would essentially be I would think, be in charge of procuring their own medicines and stuff like that. I don't know how that works. Maybe it's through the federal government and then it trickles down. I don't know. But I don't see why they couldn't have gone on their own to procure vaccines. Just saying. Could have. Maybe. Mm-hmm. But I find it odd that it's a fact that everybody in science has been calling for something like this to happen, knowing it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. We've gone through SARS already in Canada, especially hard hit in Ontario, and yet nobody has, like, Canada hasn't prepared for this at all. So we get this trickle-down vaccine. So the federal government dictates how many doses of each vaccine the province gets. Then the provincial government then dictates how many doses every region, area, or whatever of that province. I mean, it depends on where in the province you are, but let's just say regions. Each region gets. Instead of developing an Ontario-wide web system where everybody goes in and says, this is who I am, here's my information, here's where I live, I would like to get the vaccine. These are my details, right? Like, Do I have any medical conditions? Where do I work? What kind of, job do I do? Even though they should have all of this information already. If anybody should have this information, it's the government and not Google. Google has it. Google's got it. Apple's probably got it. Everybody on the internet has it, except for the government. Or they do have it, they just don't know how to put it together. Government, they just don't know how to do things, including how to roll out vaccines. So, it seems that the government has essentially told each and every single region to come up with its own way of getting these vaccines that they're being given out. Okay. So we have these Pfizer and the Moderna, and this is kind of what they're developing it for. And so instead of one big thing in Ontario where everybody puts in their data and the system just goes, hey, guess what? You are qualified for a vaccine now. Please pick your date and time when you want to show up at this particular location, which is set up and ready to go. Like how the place where we went to, it was in our region. It was through the region system, right? They could have done this on a province-wide, whatever. And say, here you are, sign up, good, go. No, they left it up to the region. So everyone is developing their own system. Wow, that's fantastic. Then AstraZeneca floods in. They're not giving that through that system. No. Apparently, it seems like they're going through the same way they distribute flu vaccine, and they're distributing it to doctors and drugstores, essentially. So you could go to your local drugstore or your local doctor, et cetera, whatever, and get these Costco, Shoppers Drug Mart, Pharma Plus, whatever chain. Mostly it went to the chains, like I think probably even the Loblaws chain of pharmacies and such like that. But some went to, I'm guessing, as far as I can tell, some went to local doctors and such like that. So all of these companies now have to also make up a system where they then take appointment or give out appointments or whatever. Can you see the problem that's happening here? So, yeah, so that happens. Now, these places don't really know how many doses and such that they're getting until they really kind of get them, right? So, we'll take whatever, Shoppers Drug Mart and Costco for instance. They're going to be delivering it to these two companies. Each one is getting, whatever, 20,000 doses. Those two companies are then deciding by themselves which stores or which pharmacies are going to get how many doses and such like that. At which point, they become available. Except, they're already taking reservations, right? So there's no way for them to check and see if you've signed up at the Costco or the Shoppers Drug Mart or the government site or even if you're in the same area, the right area, right? Because you can lie on whatever you type into the system, right? There's just nothing that says you can't. It's very easy to do. So what ended up happening was whoever got in there first, and people would do that. They just sit on the computer. And I know I had friends who desperately needed vaccine. Like they haven't been able to leave their building because though they technically should fall under we'll call them, immunocompromised, they aren't technically immunocompromised. enough for the government, for them to fall into the government system, you know, right off the bat. So I know a lot of people who were just like, I don't care what vaccine it is, get it to me, because I can't risk anything else. Like everything, like like the systems that they're putting on and what they're having to do to just try and make it through this is crazy, right? So they will have their phones, their tablets, multiple computers, laptops, multiple people, and they're just sitting there refreshing everything. And as soon as one becomes available, get in there, boom, sign up whoever you're living with, sign up your friends, sign up everything. But you know what? They don't just do it there at one. They don't just do it at Costco. They don't just do it at, you know, Shoppers Drug Mart. They do it at every one possible. So here becomes the problem, because they get their, we got vaccine, you are such and such number on the list, therefore we got enough to get you. Good, great. You can get your vaccine. But you've also taken up 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 40 other spots. Right? So, because all of this was going on, what they ended up having was places, because people weren't canceling, and I get it, there's no guarantee you're going to get your vaccine when you get into these things, you know, you kind of worry. It's like, oh, are they going to cancel it? Is there going to be a problem? You never know. So you hold on to things until you get that vaccine, right? So what was happening is places were, you know, say they had enough for 100 people and 25 showed up. They had 75 extra doses available, right? Well, as we know, these vaccines have a short shelf life, right? So it's like we can't just be moving these things around and around and around and around. And we got more vaccine coming in for the next batch. Like, everything has been set out based off of these people signing up and going, yes, I want this vaccine. Oh, right, we have lots of people in this area and lots of people in this area. Ship out those vaccines. Well, they got theirs, and apparently, you know, all the. So a lot of people were not able to get in to get an appointment because all the spots were taken up, and B, and I'll give it, some vaccine hunter Twitter account ended up being created, and it was tweeting out, this place has this much vaccine left over. This place has this much vaccine left over. If you want it, go get it. Right? So I did know a lot of friends who, even though all the distribution was supposed to be like based off of your area code, I live here, they were just going anywhere. And apparently the doctors didn't really care where you were from. If you showed up, they would give you vaccine. Now, I hope that never resulted in creating a shortage at any place, but it did result in people just traveling all over the place trying to get these vaccines. So it became really, really, really hard to get the vaccine if you wanted it. To the point where now I don't know. It's gotten to this point. I got my vaccine. Most of my friends have at least gotten the AstraZeneca. Actually, a good portion of them managed to get the AstraZeneca. That's what they were going through the drugstore stuff. And they were driving. I had somebody who lives downtown. He drove up like over an hour, maybe 45 minutes probably, to an hour to get to a place where they had vaccine. I had another friend who registered in the system, but because they had no vaccine available where he was, actually got told that his appointment was in another city. To which he was like, well, I'm not going to say no to this. I want to get the vaccine. So, and he doesn't have a car. He took public transit to go get the vaccine. I have other friends who desperately needed the vaccine because of their situation, who couldn't get anything local. They were in a hot spot. Like, COVID is rampant in their area, and they couldn't get in to get any vaccines anywhere. And only through this Vaccine Hunter Twitter account, which I don't know if it's government run or if it's some person. I don't know anything about it. But only because of that found out, and get this, through that Twitter account found out that there was going to be a pop-up in their area, in their postal code area, a pop-up with vaccine. So they got up super early in the morning and spent, get this, I think it's a 45 minutes? 45-minute walk or something like that to get to this place. To get in line hours before it even opened, just to be able to get a spot to get their vaccine, which was later on in the afternoon. So they then had to go 45 minutes back home, wait there, and then, an hour before their spot open was, they're supposed to get their injection, take a 45-minute jaunt back, get their injection, then another 45 minutes back home. All through I think they spent a good 8 hours that day just to get a vaccine. But they wouldn't have even known about it if it wasn't for a Twitter account. Like, it shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that. I don't understand why the whole rollout and vaccine problem here in Canada makes no sense. It's a real easy thing. Had they just contacted a logistical company, the company could have easily said, this is how you do it. Would you like us to make it for you? And it would have been made. And it would have worked perfectly. But no, it seems like the government just makes up stuff. Incompetent stuff. Probably, I don't know who's doing it and who's making the decisions. I don't know. But it just seems like from federal all the way down to, what we got here, the municipal governments are just doing what they're able to do. And they seem to be doing a pretty good job. But for some reason, once you get outside of that, the whole thing falls apart. And I know you've been listening to this, or have even stayed to the end, but either way, this is going to be a long road. And, they keep saying that our percentages are getting close to where the rest of the world is, which is odd considering we were so far behind the leaders, but I don't know. I think we have the same percentage, I could be wrong, but right now I think we have the same percentage of people in Canada have 1 dose as the United States has 2. Huh? Whatever. Anyways, there'll be another report at some point in the future, I'm sure. But how are you holding up? Anyways, stay safe, stay sane. Thanks for watching.